Hello and welcome to your lesson. Today's learning target is I can solve square and root problems. Some of them are going to be square roots, some of them are cube roots or fourth roots. So first, let's talk about what perfect squares are. So we talked about the square of a number, so such as 2 squared means 2 times 2, which is 4. 3 squared is 3 times 3, which is 9. 4 squared is 4 times 4, which is 16. So all of these perfect squares that I'm putting in here, numbers like 4, 9, 16, are all called perfect squares because you can take the whole number 5, multiply it by itself, and get 25. 25 is a perfect square. Now, all of these numbers between 16 and 25, like 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, those are not perfect squares. You cannot take a whole number, multiply it by itself, and get any one of these numbers, 17, 18, 19, same thing between here, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Those are not. Our perfect squares are 4, 9, 16, 25. 6 squared is 36. So anything between 25 and 36, not perfect squares. 7 squared is 49. And really, you should kind of have this list, or maybe you know what these numbers are in your head. But if you don't, you should write them down to have a resource to go back and look at. So 8 squared is 64. 9 squared is 81. 10 squared is 10 times 10, which is 100. 11 squared is 121. 12 squared is 144. 13 squared is 169. Now, if you transpose those second two numbers, so this is 169, 14 is 196. 15 squared is 225. 16 squared is 256. 17 squared is 289. And 18 squared is the last one I'm going to do, is 324. I'm going to skip 19 for whatever reason, but 20 squared is 4. 2 squared is 4, and then we have to have 2 zeros, so it is 400. Now, all of these are called perfect squares: 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49. So what we're going to do today is something like the opposite of squaring is taking the square root. So if we take the square root of 4, we go back to that number 2. What times what gives you 4? And it has to be the same number in order to do this. So when we take the square root of 9, what times what gives you 9? And it has to be the same number every time. So 3 times 3 gives you 9, so the square root of 9 is 3. The square root of 16, okay, it doesn't mean factors 2 times 8. It has to be the same number. And if you put 2 times 8 in there, those are not the same number, so we do not use them. It must be the same number. So 4 times 4 gives you 16. So the square root of 16 is 4. the square root of 121. Well, let's look. Do we have 121 as a perfect square? We do. It is 11, because 11 times 11 gives you 121. So it's important to know these back and forth. So when we get to the problems today, and problems today are going to be solve for x. So x squared, what number can we square to get 25? So remember, if this says x squared, what number squared? The opposite of squaring is taking the square root. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. What times what gives you 25? And most kids come up with that number 5. Okay, but I'm telling you there's another one, 5 and what other number? So what other number can you multiply? And it has to be the same. So you can't say 5 and negative 5 because that gives you negative 25, and we're looking for a positive 25. So what if we took negative 5 times negative 5? Negative 5 times negative 5 gives us a positive 25. So the two roots of 25 are 5 and negative 5. A lot of times we only use the principal square root, and the principal square root is the positive root. So a lot of times we only end up using the positive root, which would be 5. But if they're just asking you to solve this, we can take negative 5 times negative 5, and that gives us 25. So that we have to have two answers here. So if we have what squared gives you 81. So what times what, make sure it's the same number, gives you 81. Okay, and as you guys are thinking and looking at your chart, it is 9. And remember, there's two of them. So 9 and negative 9, because negative 9 times negative 9 gives you 81. The principal square root is 9, but we also have negative 9. So what squared gives you 4 over 49? So what squared, so the opposite of squaring is taking the square root. So the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 49 is 7. Now remember, we have two answers. So 2/7 and negative 2/7. A lot of times on the online book assignment, what they're going to do is have you write plus and minus, and then the fraction 2 over 7. So that's just the mathematician's shortcut way of writing this answer. So let's do one more fraction here. What squared gives you 25 over 121? So remember, we're taking the square root of both sides. So because we're taking the square root, we can have a positive and the negative value. And the square root of 25 is 5, and the square root of 121 is 11. So the answer is plus and minus 5 over 11. All right, so we're not just doing square roots today, we're also doing cubed roots. So that would be something like, what cubed gives you 27? So instead of it just being two things multiplied together, this is saying we need 3. And remember, they always need to be the same number. So if you put 1 times 1 times 1, 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. So if you take 2 times 2 times 2, well, 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8. Well, that didn't work. So 3 times 3 times 3, well, 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27, and that's what we were looking for. What number times itself 3 times gives you 27? So what cubed gives you 27? So the answer is x is 3. So if we write just a chart here or a list, kind of like I did with the perfect squares, 1 cubed is 1. 2 cubed, which we did, 2 times 2 times 2, is 8. 3 cubed, which we did here, 3 times 3 times 3, is 27. 4 cubed is 64. 4 times 4 times 4. 5 cubed, 5 times 5 times 5, is 125. 6 cubed, 6 times 6 times 6 is 216. Again, having this chart, something to look back at would be nice. It makes it easier when you're doing your math. So 7 cubed, 7 times 7 times 7 is 343. Okay, so let's just do one more sample here. What cubed gives you 216? So what is x going to be? And if we look at 216 and you look at your chart, it is 6. 6 times 6 times 6 gives you 216. So the cubed root of 216 is 6. Notice there's only one answer for the cubes, but when you're doing squares, what squared gives you 100? It's plus and minus 10. So when you have square roots, it's 2 answers, plus 10 and minus 10, because 10 times 10 and negative 10 times negative 10. This one is 6 times 6 times 6, but if you did negative 6 times negative 6 times negative 6, this is negative 216, and that's not what we want. We wanted a positive. So that's why this one only has 1. All right, good luck on your assignment.